Hey, what's going on, guys? Badass Revere here, and today I'll be taking a look at the final figure in this series of Marvel Legends, and it is the Build-A-Figure of Dormammu. This is just a straight up repaint of the not the Build-A-Figure, the STCC version from 2015, I believe. I think that's what year it was, but this guy is a lot bigger than I thought he was going to be. Looking at him in pictures, he does seem like he is kind of small for the most part. I thought he was kind of on the Hyperion mold, but you know, pictures can be deceiving, and this guy is pretty big. Let's compare him next to the Doctor Strange figure, and he towers over him. So that shows you about how big he really is, which is pretty hefty size. He's pretty hefty weight, and I gotta say he's pretty cool. Dormammu is a really cool character. I mean, he's probably one of the most powerful. He's probably one of the most powerful sorcerers or demon things, in probably all of Marvel Universe. He's pretty powerful, and you know, figure form definitely gets a good look of him. There are differences, I do believe, in the figures. I'm pretty sure the STCC version, he's got the paint here is a little bit different. A lot of the paint's different, and I wish I could compare the two, but then it'd be kind of a waste because then I'd have two Dormammu figures for no reason. But yeah, there is a lot of differences, but this one, it's pretty much in a metallic purple for the most part. Most of the molding for him is metallic purple, which looks really nice. This part, and then all the way up his chest, or I guess not up his chest, but up to his abs, is painted red, which looks really nice. I like this color of red. It's very metallic and shiny, so it looks nice. The inside of his robes are kind of this dark flat red, which I kind of wish they would have painted and made it look metallic too, since everything else about him seems to be pretty metallic, but unfortunately not. Looking at the back, the little back part of him is very nicely sculpted, even though I don't know what in the world is going on. Over here it just looks like some crazy scribbles and stuff like that, but once you look down the side of it, you can actually see some like ancient symbols and stuff like that, so that's pretty cool. This one here kind of looks like the Yu-Gi-Oh's little doodad. I can't remember what it's called, but that kind of looks like Yu-Gi-Oh's diamond box thing or whatever it was called. So yeah, that goes up pretty much throughout here. There's not really a whole lot of shading. It's pretty much just painted or molded in this black color, or painted however it was made. So it doesn't look bad, but you just can't really see the details too much unless you have it in light. The belt here, the little knobs on his belt are painted red to give it some distinction, which is nice. Coming up to the torso section, this is a separate piece, and it doesn't really have any way of staying down, and the only thing that keeps it on him is the head, which is ginormous, and I didn't realize the head was going to be so big, but it does look cool. He's a very menacing looking guy, and I think that also is plays in part with his character and just how scary the guy really is. Having to fight against something like this would be pretty terrifying, but he is also very cool looking. I really dig his design a lot. So yeah, that's a separate piece. It's also molded in kind of like a metallic purple, which looks very cool. He's got these little spikes that come up out of the front part of the chest piece, which is cool, and then he's got the collar that goes around his neck here, which looks also very nice. Looking at the head, it takes a little bit to pop off. The head is very cool. Very nice translucent yellow. It's got some nice orange going through it to make it look really good flames. He does have this little bit of plastic right here, which is kind of bothering me, which I can't seem to get out. But that's just on my figure, I think. But yeah, I really had no idea that his head was going to be this thick. It's a pretty thick head. but it gets the job done. It keeps the head, this little piece on here, like I said. Otherwise, the whole thing would just pop off. It is kind of hard to get his head on, but once you get it on there, it's pretty snug and secure. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a whole lot of articulation out of it, so that kind of sucks. But he's a pretty big guy, so he's not really having anything to look up to. If anything, he needs to look down more, which he seems to do pretty well. I think he gets a pretty good movement downward, but that's really about the extent of the head. Some other things to note is that both of his hands are in this open kind of clenching form, which are very nice. It makes sense for this guy. I don't really see a reason why someone like Dormammu would have fists, because he doesn't really use his fists, or he doesn't really use his hands for anything other than conjuring magic, which it makes more sense for them to be open. And speaking of the hands, he's got these little these spikes coming out of his knuckles, which I think is also a very nice little detail that they added in there, which just looks really cool. So yeah, and I didn't really talk about the legs, but there's not much going on with the legs. They're the same kind of molded purple plastic, and then he's got his boots, which I'm pretty sure this is like a separate piece, this black part here. And kind of, it doesn't really get in the way of his feet movement at all, so that's nice. And yeah, and technically these are part of his things, and this came with the SDCC figure as well, but I'm pretty sure Baron Mordo came with these, but he comes with these two little Ghost Rider heads, which is kind of weird. I'm not entirely sure why they chose to do that as like an effect for him. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to just be like, hey, I can summon flaming skulls in my hands, or if it's supposed to actually be like an energy effect for him to do an attack. I'm not totally sure. It's kind of weird. I know these are painted different than the SDCC version. I don't remember what the other one was painted. It looks cool enough. It's just kind of weird. Kind of a weird choice for them to do, and maybe he does that in the comics where he summons like flaming skulls or something, but this is literally just the Series 1 Ghost Rider head, painted in like translucent green and blue plastic, so it's kind of weird, and I can't really get him to hold it well, so I don't know how you're supposed to do it that's an effective way, but maybe you just gotta finagle it in there somehow. There we go. So, alright, I guess I got it. So, there you go. It's Dormammu holding Ghost Rider's head, even though I'm not sure what the extent of their relationship is, even though the head's not the right color. But, you know, regardless of that, it's still a really nice figure. Definitely worth, I'd say the wave itself is worth getting, except for maybe the astral form Doctor Strange and the comic Doctor Strange, but just because those are like repainted figures and they don't really add much to anything being repainted and whatnot. But definitely worth getting this figure for sure. And yeah, so definitely check him out. In terms of articulation, he really doesn't have any movement in the neck. It's mostly just a ball peg. There's no swivel or anything. But he can it does kind of move back and forth. He can look down a little bit, like I said, but he can't really look up. He just kind of looks like in a straightforward motion. But his head can rotate. His arms go out and in. They go up about 90 degrees before his armor plates over here get in the way. But his arms can go out and in. He's got a rotation in the bicep. Single joint in the arm or the elbow, which gets about 90. It's a little less than 90, I think, but it's about there. The arm or the wrist rotate, and they have a hinge. He's got an ab crunch, which goes about 1 click back, and I'd say maybe 2 clicks back, but it didn't really click. It seems like it's either there is no ratchet to catch it, or that rhymed. There's either no ratchet to, you know, click, or it's just that's just how the figure is. But he goes back that far, which I think is a little unnecessary, but he can do it. He's got a rotation in the waist, and then his legs can go forward and not really back due to his skirt, which gets in the way. And he kind of suffers from that thing where you lift up one leg and the other leg kind of goes with it, and same going back down, which I hate when figures do that because I feel like there's something wrong with it in some regard. And then when you're trying to pose him, it kind of makes it a pain in the butt because his leg is moving with the other leg. So there's that. But that doesn't really take away from him or anything. But he's got an upper thigh swivel, double jointed knees, which is kind of hard to achieve with how much limited space he actually has for the legs, but he does have it. They're there. He's got a rotation at the upper part of the boot, which is kind of like his like upper part of the thigh, I guess. So there's that. His foot has an ankle rocker and an ankle pivot. So he's got quite